Hello, and welcome to my BFA review. So, before I get into BFA, I should talk a tiny bit about my history with raiding. I started the game in Wrath, doesn't really matter. I didn't raid until the end of MOP. So the time difference there is like 6 years or so. Maybe not quite that much. It was a long time before I started raiding. I didn't kill. I started in 5.4, I should say, in Siege of Orgrimmar, and I didn't kill Garrosh. I got to Siegecrafter. I didn't really like where I was at because my guild had like 90 pulls on Black Fuse, and this was pretty late into the tier, and I thought that was a lot. You know, I look at other people who kill it in 50 pulls, who kill it in, a much lower amount, and I feel like we were going nowhere. So I left that guild, and they did end up eventually killing Black Fuse after about 120 pulls, and I didn't keep up with any of them. Fast forward to WoD, I wanted to raid Mythic at the beginning of WoD, and I didn't really. Once again, I got into a guild that wasn't really that great, and this is like a trend for me, where I get into a guild, and for me, it's just not quite good enough. Not that I think I'm amazing. I'm not a very good player. I'm okay. But I just don't want to wipe on bosses that there's no reason to be wiping on. You know, when you look at how many pulls a boss normally takes for a guild, and average is around 50, and you're in a guild and you're on pull 107, and there are people still that just are messing it up. It makes you wonder what you're doing with your time. And once again, I did not join another raid guild after leaving that one, and I actually gave up on raiding for WoD. Until the very end, I decided to give another shot at it in HFC on a rogue. I thought, I heard rogues were really fun. They looked really fun. They had cool passives, and they had a powerful trinket. So I went on ahead and tried that, and we got to Manaroth. This was very, very late into the tier, by the way. I was pretty geared once again, and this is where I learned like what I really liked about raiding, and that's not just killing the bosses, that's fun, but the reward of the loot and getting powerful, getting strong, having a character that is really, really good just feels amazing. In specifically, I should say, MOP, some of my best memories of this game are being on the Timeless Isle with, millions of HP. I have a Chaos Bolt that hits people for. I think I had 2 million health when I sacrificed my Void Walker, and I pressed my stamina buff. I don't remember exactly. I don't have a great memory, but I think I could get over 1 million health or over 2 million health back then. I think it was over 1 million when I popped all my cooldowns, and my Chaos Bolt just did so much damage, and I could just kill the shit out of people. So fast forward. Back to WoD, we didn't end up killing it, but I was happy with where I was at. So finally, going into Legion, our guild did a reform that I was in. We kind of did a reformation to go into Legion, and this guild was called Virtu, and I had really high hopes, and we didn't do very well. We got our AOTC on week 2, maybe. I don't quite remember. For those of you who don't know, if you plan on getting cutting edge, your guild should be able to get AOTC on week 1. I can talk more about that later, but basically, if you can't get AOTC on week 1, it's usually because people aren't doing things correctly. The tuning is very rarely. Like, Kill Jaden was one of the few times that the tuning was actually really, really difficult, and I still got that one on week 1. It just took a long time. Anyways, so we got our AOTC on week 2. We made it most of the way through the raid. I think we killed Ursoc, we killed Elreth, and I'm not sure if we made it to Cenarius. I feel like we made it to the Twin. Yeah, I feel like we made it to the Twin Dragons, and we kind of fell apart. but I was still hungry for raiding at that point. Normally at this point I give up. And I'm like, yo, you know what? The guild fell apart. We made it through the partway through the raid, whatever. But you know what? I decided I want to keep going, and I was really really tryharding. I did a lot of research all the time, and I didn't do as much Mythic Plus as I should have. I didn't realize how important it was back then, but it's kind of a different topic. I did some of my best parses I ever had. I had orange parses on Mythic, and I know for a lot of people out there that's not really a big deal. And on Reclear, it's usually, you're supposed to get orange parses on Reclear. But, on progress kills, I was getting like 95s. And I was just doing very, very high damage overall. I never got an orange on Cenarius, but I had an orange on everything else. I had like 93 on Cenarius, I think, for overall. And I felt really, really good. Even though it was a very easy raid tier, I felt really, really good. Now, before Nighthold came out, we had a miniature raid that was a 3-boss raid, and I thought it was too hard. Turns out that the first raid tier, Emerald Nightmare, was actually extremely easy. And this next raid tier, this mini raid tier, it wasn't a tier. A lot of people say it was just a 3-boss. It was called the Trial of Valor, and basically I quit during Trial of Valor. We killed Odin, and we didn't get past Gorm. That's the short end of it. We had a bit of trouble with recruitment at the time. And I decided, I raided for a little while. I achieved some things. I really don't want to wipe, 300 times to Helya. Because like I said, raiding for me is about getting more powerful. It's about, feeling strong in the game and the world. And back then, because there was only 3 bosses, there was like so few items that were even that good from this little tiny raid. Like, there really wasn't that much you could equip from it. Even if you equipped literally which not even everything from it was an upgrade, but even if you equipped every single item from it, there was only like 5 items, maybe 6 items for me. I don't quite remember perfectly. So I decided, you know what, it's not worth it to struggle through Helya. I'm just going to stop raiding. And I made a very small return in Nighthold. Once again, I found myself in a guild that wasn't that good. They're wiping on Croesus. The only mechanic is you get assigned to go to an area and you tank the swirlies in your area, and that's it. And we just weren't doing it. And I felt like, this isn't that hard. This guild isn't that good. And I'm not trying to just flame everyone that I ever raided with. I'm not trying to call them all like trash or anything. They're really not. Mythic raiding is very difficult, especially for a video game. Like, this is something you're supposed to be spending your time on, just like having fun. And it's really, really tough. It requires a lot of dedication to actually get that cutting edge. Gave up on that. Started playing a lot of Path of Exile. Came back for Tomb of Sargeras. Made it all the way to Maiden. Gave up on that. Actually, I don't know if I made it to Maiden on Mythic. Yeah, I made it to Maiden on Mythic. But I never killed Maiden. Especially once I saw what was coming next. Like, part of me was motivated by how hard that tier was, and part of me said, screw that. And we're almost to BFA. If you're wondering why I'm talking so much about my pre-BFA stuff, 1, I've never made a video like this, and 2, honestly, there is not much for me to say about... Spoiler alert, there is not much for me to say about BFA. You've heard the trend so far, not much is going to change. I actually, going into Antorus, I actually did get cutting edge. I decided I was going to take this shit seriously. I was going to actually get a real cutting edge. It wasn't as... Everyone says Antorus was a joke boss. It was a normal Mythic end boss. He took guilds on average around 300 pulls to kill, which I think is normal and reasonable, assuming it's not like a 20-minute fight or something insane. Like, 300 pulls is a lot. It usually takes about a month for most raid teams to get that in. Like, unless you raid for 7 nights a week, you physically can't get in 300 pulls in under a month. And I don't like raiding like that. I raid for, I'm more of an average player. I like raiding for, 3 nights, 2 nights, something like that, 8 or 9 hours. And I look at Antorus, and I did have to change guilds most of the way through the tier. I got all the way to Agrimar, and funnily enough, at the end of BFA, I still don't have the Mythic Agrimar achievement, because I haven't done any Scythe runs. I should go do those, but it's neither here nor there. I play a Warlock. That's like down the road type deal, when I decide I'm going to play my DK and do no damage. So, for Antorus, the first guild I was in, I had a lot of hope for this guild. I was very friendly with all the people. I really liked the environment, and there were a lot of people in it that were very try-hard. The problem I felt like was our weakest links were not being managed, and to me, like, that's what makes or breaks a cutting-edge guild, is, you have to raid as a team, and every team has its weakest links. And I'm not saying that you should be going out there threatening people, telling them, like, they blow, and they need to get better at the game. Like, you need to work with them, and you need to figure out, like, do you actually want to be good? Like, are you trying and you're just failing? Or are you not trying? And if you're not trying, do you want to try? You got to figure this stuff out. And I feel like our weakest links just were holding us way too far back. Even though we made it all the way to Agrimar, which is pretty good. This was before nerfs. We made it... When I switched guilds, I switched to a guild that was already on. They killed Agrimar once, and they decided they were going to try to kill it again. And then they decided for the rest of the expansion they're just going to pull Argus. So I cleared, in this new guild, I cleared all the way up to Agrimar, and they almost one-shot it. And it got messed up. We spent the whole raid night on it. We failed. We didn't kill Agrimar, and he said, okay, well, we didn't kill Agrimar this week, so we're not going to kill it. I said, you know what, that's fine. I care about cutting edge. I already have basically full bis. I had, some nutty items which I can talk about, but whatever. I had a really nice Arcano crystal with a socket. Like a really nice Arcano crystal with a socket that I got from Mr. Jim himself. And so I got to Argus, and I said, okay, this is going to take a month of 3 nights a week, and we're just going to wipe. And some of those wipes are going to be my fault. This is the attitude. If you really want to be a cutting edge raider, and you don't want to be like Hall of Fame good, like if you just want to be an average player, that's, obviously you're getting cutting edge, you're good at the game, but you're not Hall of Fame, you're not going around trying to show off, oh, I'm US 300 clout, I'm US 500 clout. Like, if you don't care about that, you just want to kill the boss, what you say is, we're going to wipe a lot, this is going to take a long time, some of it's going to be my fault, a lot of it's not going to be my fault, because, just statistically, there's a lot more people than you. I'm not saying you're magically better than everyone else, I'm just saying there's a lot of room for error here. Sometimes a raid night might not happen, but you just stick to it, and it went really smooth. It was a really smooth cutting edge kill, honestly. It was exactly what I was expecting. We had a raid. We never missed a raid night. We pulled it for a month straight. We got 300 kills, and we pulled it before the second nerf. Argus had 2 nerfs. Technically 3. I like to say 3. I don't remember. I'm not going to go into the nerfs, so I'm not going to talk about them and what they did. But basically, if you killed it post first nerf, you were still pretty good. If you killed it post second nerf, you were all right. Like, the second nerf really, really made him a lot easier. And I kind of wish we had re-cleared more. But there was some guild drama there with the guild kind of imploding as a lot of people decided to leave the guild and create a new one for BFA, which I guess we'll be getting into that soon enough. That guild was called Doppelganger, the one that I killed Argus in. And I had a good time there. It also had weak links. Every guild is going to have weak links. Whether they're properly managed or not, every guild is going to have a weakest link. And I feel like they did a good job at like trying to rein in expectations for what people, like the skill level people need to be playing at, without just outright telling people they're stupid or bad. You know, as you get higher up that ladder, closer to like clout levels, you know, people just tell you you're trash and either get better or get out of my raid. And obviously that works to a degree because those people are US top who cares for whatever reason. So I kill Argus. I'm very happy. I feel very, very good. I feel like this was my first real cutting edge. Because, yeah, I killed Xavius, but you know, he was a joke. This, I actually earned it. I was there for the long nights. I was there for the the regression, the progression, and it wasn't super nerfed. One little funny story I have before I move on to BFA. The last thing that happened in Legion, actually, so it's good to put it at the end, is I had a friend who got world third to last cutting edge. So when I say there's 3 nerfs on Argus, the third nerf was they unlocked our weapons, and our weapons they used to give us a main stat proc of like, I want to say like 5k or something, like 4k or 5k when you had it completely maxed out. When they unlocked our weapons, it was giving us a main stat proc of 22k. Just a completely absurd number, a ridiculous number. And the damage in HPS was so incredibly high that people were killing the boss minutes early. People were skipping phases. You know, the boss essentially became a joke at the very end. And my friend always gets teased that he didn't really get cutting edge. I think he's a decent player, but you know, the guild he was in was giga bad. And it's just so hilarious that they'd said that their raid leader said, "Fuck it, you guys, we're staying up till 6 a.m. till the servers go the fuck down. And we've been here for 400 pulls, and we're getting this stupid boss killed," and they did. And they got world third to last cutting edge. And I never let him live that down. So on to BFA. My guild imploded, Doppelganger, and it was to form a new guild with new leadership with one of the officers. He wanted Guildmaster. His name was Sado, and he went on to make a guild called Fox Nihil, which is still a guild that raids to this day on the server Zul'Jin. And we go into the first raid tier, and I don't really like my class changes because I don't really like a slower gameplay. My character feels really weak. His damage is good. I'm playing Affliction Lock, so obviously I'm top of the meters in Uldir for a lot of these bosses, but you know, my cast speed is really low. My character's really clunky. I can deal with it, and some of the more annoying stuff, even more annoying than that, was it was very expensive to raid. So let's go take a look at what we did. This is going to spoil BFA when I scroll down, but let's go take a look at Uldir in BFA. So this doesn't quite cleanly fit. That's good. So Uldir. I don't know why I have so many normal kills, but whatever. We got our week 1 AOTC. This was a really annoying boss, and when I did heroic, I was afraid for what would happen. I kind of foreboded the future. We cleared at a normal pace for what we were, and we got to Gahoon. This doesn't say how many weeks. This says the week, or I think the weeks are later on, so I can mention that later, I guess. But we went at it at a normal pace, and I'm not happy with myself with what happened. But I think thinking about it after all this time, I think I did the right thing. Basically, to cut the story short, I stopped raiding at Gahoon. We got to Gahoon, and for those of you who didn't know what that boss required, it required a pull reset every single time you wanted to pull it. So that means that someone has to pull the boss, we reset the boss, he despawns, then we have to go place 4 lock gates, 2 lock portals, or 4 lock gates, 4 lock portals, and everyone has to play correctly. You could wipe on this boss within the first minute. You could basically, as soon as the first orb went out, it had to be done correct. It was simple, but it had to be done correctly. And if someone didn't catch an orb, because there's this slowing, there's like 2 lanes, all right, on the side, and you use lock gates to skip forward. You throw the orb to the next guy, he catches it, he uses the lock gate to skip forward, and then at the exact same time, both sides need to dunk their orb in. There's like a 2-second or 1-second time period at which you can do this. So I thought this was way too tough for a first raid tier. The first raid tiers I'm used to were like Xavius, but it's not unheard of. We had the first raid of WAD was also required a ton of pulls and a ton of time. Gahoon wasn't super difficult. He was a weird boss that he just required an incredible amount of setup, and I found that to be very obnoxious and very unfulfilling. I suffered a lot when I pulled, I dreaded going into raid night, because I know I'm going to spend materials to raid back then were extremely expensive at the beginning. You'd spend over 1,000 gold a night just on like your potions and food. And if your guild covered your flask, it wasn't too bad, but if you had to pay for your flask, that was another like 400 to 500 gold as well. Sorry. So I left. I didn't leave Vox Nihil. I actually asked Sato, I said, is it okay, like, if I leave, will you be able to get a warlock to replace me, like a friend from another guild? Because he actually was friends with a lot of the guilds on Zul'jin, or like a lot of the guild leaders. He knew a lot of people, and he said, yes, we'll be okay. He said, but if you do this, you're not going to raid with us again, like this, if you choose to do this. And I thought about it, and I said, yeah, I'm sorry, but every single raid night was just fucking horrible. I was literally depressed because of how bad this boss was. Not that he was hard, he was just annoying, expensive, draining, and maybe it's where I was in life, but I hated Gahoon. And I hated Gahoon so much that these Dazara lore kills, this was not during... Spoiler, this was not during Dazara lore. And this was not, obviously this was never. And this was not during the Eternal Palace either. I think I came back when Eternal Palace came out, and I asked Vox Nihil for if I could come along to their, I don't know if it was I think it was a normal run. I said, can I come? They were doing an alt normal run. I said, can I come along? He said, yeah, sure. And I just wanted to see the raid, but like not in an LFR setting. I wanted to see it in like a normal raid setting. And I still felt bad. I was there. Obviously, I had the history of what had recently happened looming. I was still in the guild. And it wasn't until 8.3 that I decided enough was enough. All these patches. I came back to the game and I did like the quest content and like the daily. Like, that's what I used to do in WoW. Remember I said I started in Wrath and I didn't raid till Mop? What I did in. I used to PvP a lot, but outside of PvP, I did quests. I collected mounts. Just dumb stuff like that. And every patch I would come back, I would check out, ooh, it's Mechagon, let's do Mechagon. I finished Mechadon, by the way, before the expansion ended. I don't know why, but I wanted the stupid achievement. There's an achievement to kill all the rares in Mechagon. I don't remember what it's called, but it's a prerequisite for Mechadon. And for some reason, I just wanted to kill all the rares, and I did it eventually. I thought it was kind of cool that certain rares only spawned on certain days, or they required like cooperation from other players to spawn and stuff like that. But finally, 8.3 is looming its head around. It's N'Zoth, it's Ny'alotha, it looks cool. Corruption looks powerful. I love power. I'm all about power. Essence is coming back. I came back like 2 weeks before 8.3 came out to start my Essence grind, and holy shit, like that was a long time ago at this point, so it's hard to remember, but when I think about it, that was crazy. I can't believe I did that. Like, I don't know what type of craziness they plan for Shadowlands, but I hope it's not nearly as time gated as Essence is. I just can't believe that it's a lot of these were 4-week grinds that literally you had no way of getting it faster. And like your BIS one, like getting revered for rank 3 Breath of the Dying was just BIS for everyone. It had corruption resistance, huge damage proc, it gained bonus proc rate and execute range on rank 3. And it was like, this was the definition of time gated, because it was a reputation grind that the only way to get rep was from doing your dailies, basically. And that's it. Like, maybe you could go loot some chests or something, I don't know. Going into 8.3, the corruptions were not what we expected. I was expecting corruptions to be like 10% of your power. I think most people thought that they were going to be around 10, maybe 15% of your power, but they were more like 30 to 40. It was a lot of your power. And if you got lucky and you had a bunch of infinite stars early on, you just one-shot people in PvP. You did lots of damage in PvE, but that was also RNG. I quit 8.3 after like a month of it, and I have some normal boss clears here. Basically, I started 8.3 in a normal guild because I had my gear. I was always used to being able to just jump right into Mythic because I always just had good enough gear, My headset randomly turned off. My bad. So I was talking about gear. I was always used to just having good gear. I was basically, in Legion, like I said, even if I quit in that raid tier before Nighthold, the little mini raid tier before Nighthold, going into Nighthold, I still had good enough gear from, whatever. Going into 2 Masargeras. I had good enough gear. Not Bis from Nighthold, but it was good enough to do, heroic. If you can do heroic, you can get into mythic. But this was the first time in my raiding history that I did not have good enough gear because I missed, 3 tier, 2.5 tiers, whatever you want to call this. I didn't raid this, didn't raid this, and didn't raid this. So my gear was this. My gear was like 100 behind. Like I had to do normal to get good enough gear to apply to heroic. And, I joined a friends guild that was 3 out of 12 mythic. This was much later into the patch. I think this was around a month and 2 months into the patch, maybe. I decided, you know what, it's raid time. I looked at, a lot of people had already killed N'Zoth at this point. Maybe it was 3 months in. I don't remember. This was like, so timeline, this was 1 month before the Corruption Vendor came out, and no one knew the Corruption Vendor was coming out just yet. Corruption Vendor hadn't just quite been announced, but I decided I'm going to raid. I looked at the I wanted to play DK really bad because I never played DK before, but I looked at the stats. Destro Warlock, which is what I always played, was one of the most popular and the most powerful specs on this patch. It was one of the most brought specs to N'Zoth. Fire Mage was like one of the only things that was more powerful. And DK had less than 100 kills. Like, we're talking, there was 2,000 logs with Destro locks, and there was less than 100 with DKs, with Frost plus Unholy. And I know DKs are good now that post-vendor, and that you stack Mastery, and you go Ice Cap build, and you just one-shot the Tendies, or whatever you do. I know they're good now, but they weren't back then. At least from what I saw, and I decided that I should just go on Warlock. It's what I'm used to. I won't have to do a huge amount of research. Warlock didn't change too much. So going into my friend's guild, they were 3 out of 12 mythic when I started. And, this was a bad guild. Now, I do not want to flame these guys, okay? Because they're not bad people. But this was a guild that did not know how to manage its weakest links. And that is what holds so many guilds back, is not knowing how to identify and manage your weakest links. If you have a player that's underperforming, you don't just ignore them and give them the cold shoulder. You address them directly. Imagine like they're a problem, and you need to take them head on, and you need to talk to them. You don't need to be mean. You can be friendly, because you don't have to be like an ass. You need to be like, look, dude, we're having issues here, and you're behind the curve. So, like, what do I need to do? Do I need to play the game more with you? Do I need to, I'll do some LFR with you. I'll do some BGs with you. I'll do heroic with you. I'll go do dungeons with you. I'll look over logs with you. I'll, anything you want to do. Anything that you might think will help you play better and get to the level where we need you to be, we'll do that. And if you think it's not worth your time to do that, then why are you holding on to this person in the first place? Just recruit and just get rid of them. I know it's difficult. I know it's really, really difficult to recruit for a 3 out of 12, 4 out of 12 guild. And this was moderately late into not super late into the patch, mind you, moderately late. Whew, that's a lot. We get to Shadhar, and this boss is a joke boss, okay? It's like a target dummy. You run to a designated spot if you get targeted, and if it's announced, you run when you get targeted, it drops a food thing. You take it and you run it to the boss. So this is like 2 mechanics. One, stand here. and move over here if you get targeted. That's the first mechanic. Mechanic number 2, take the thing that's from here and put it in the boss if you are told to do so. If you're not told to do so, don't do it. If you can't do it, which is possible, then just announce that you can't do it, and someone else will do it for you. Doesn't matter who. Someone will. You know, and we were struggling on Shadowheart. We eventually killed it, but by the time we killed it, after like 50 pulls or whatever, I decided this isn't for me. It's time to move up. And I started applying for guilds that were 10 out of 12. I had pretty good parses. On Heroic, I had all oranges. On Mythic, I had all blue for overall, but I had like high purple for item level. You know, my gear was ass. It was really bad. But for my item level, I had like 80s. You know, pretty good parses. So I knew that like any good guild up here that's 10 out of 12 trying to kill Carapace, trying to kill N'Zoth, is going to be recruiting warlocks, and they're going to be looking for, you know, talent like this, that, you know, players that don't have a lot of gear, but they do have experience and they will kill this boss with us. And that's where I found where I'm currently at, and hopefully I can finally be in a guild that I can stay with for a while. Gorillas, which it wasn't called. It wasn't called Gorillas back then. That was pre-Reformation. I felt it kind of stroked my ego a bit to get invited to, you know, skip 6 bosses. You know, I told my friends guild, I said, thank you guys. I'm not an asshole. That's the thing. You know, sometimes I can be, but I told them, I said, thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you so much for helping me gear a bit. You know, it's not like I was stealing gear and leaving, you know. These guys have been 3 out of 12 for a month. They didn't need MOT items, you know. They didn't need robes of unreality or whatever the hell drops. Or Psyche Shredder. So I got the loot from those. But basically, as soon as I had all the loot from those first 4 bosses, that's about the time that I decided I needed to make the switch. When I was like, there's literally nothing for me to do here except for wipe on... Next, we're going to go wipe on Xanash, which didn't sound like fun. So we joined, or I joined. It wasn't called Gorillas. It had a weird name. I can't remember it. But basically, I was raiding in... I had another Friends Guild that I did Heroic in. But this was on the weekend. And so at the same time, I was gearing my main. I was doing Heroic in my Friends Guild on my main. And I had an alt that I started bringing my alt. They needed a tank in my Friends Guild. So I started bringing my DK and I started tanking in that. So I was tanking on one character, DPSing on another. And I had cutting edge aspirations. And I moved on up to, we'll just call it, it wasn't Gorillas, but we'll call it Gorillas. And we got, how far did we get before the Reformation? I'm trying to think. They were 10, we didn't kill Carapace pre-reform. Oh yeah, we did. We killed Carapace. The GM had a bad night. One of the officers told the GM that he needs to stop having a bad night. And I'm not talking about performance. I'm talking about, you know, he did some stuff that he shouldn't be doing as a guild master. And the GM just kicked him and said, you know what, good luck with your future. And the officer said, you know what, I'm going to message every single raider. I'm going to ask if they're going to join me in this Reformation. And by the next day, like 17 or 18 people were with him. We had literally everyone. By the time I was contacted, they already had like 12. They actually called me. I was at the beach that day, and I got a call. Hey, bro, You want to come join Gorillas? And the only thing I could think was, you know what? I love that name, Gorillas. That's a sick guild name. I want to be a gorilla my whole life. Gorillas forever. And I joined it, and eventually we killed N'Zoth. There was some slight more drama. I know people love drama. So it took us 5 weeks to kill N'Zoth. Maybe 6 weeks to kill N'Zoth. I don't quite remember. But the reason it took us 5 weeks, it should have happened in 4. We killed it in just under 300. Just under 300 pulls. It was like 280 something. And you're like, wow, that's a normal amount of pulls. Why'd it take you 5 weeks? If you raid 9 hours a week, that should only take 4 weeks. Well, it's because our our tank got banned by Gallywix, banned because of Gallywix is what he said. This was right at the peak drama that Gallywix got dismantled as an organization, and he sold keys with them, and he told our raid leader that this was our co-tank. He told our raid leader that he was banned because of affiliation with Gallywix, and a lot of people were banned. There's been time where advertisers have been banned, etc., etc. So this was moderately believable, but my GM is not like a very trusting guy. He said, "Can you give me a screenshot of the ban?" And no screenshots were produced. He removed everyone off BNet. He ghosted us on Discord. And, after the first day, he didn't ghost us all immediately. After the first day, people were like, oh yeah, fuck, dude, that sucks. He's banned, what the hell? We're gonna have to get a new tank, dude. And we were desperate, because we should have had the boss killed the last week. We had an 11% pull, and N'Zoth dies at like 2.5%. So we had less than 10%. Like, we were at the end of the boss. And, dude, this was a lot of stress. I know my raid leader was stressed all to hell. And I feel bad for the guy. But, I came up with an idea, which was kind of a dipshit idea. I said, let's just buy a tank. Banned by Gallywix. He ended up, what actually happened, he just wanted to raid in another team. We actually found his alt on Warcraft log. He renamed his alt, but we found it on Warcraft logs. It was in another guild on Zul'jin, killing N'Zoth. He got cutting edge and he logged out for the tier. And no one's heard anything from him. Ah, man. I'm not sure what he was thinking, because we actually killed it. The very next week that we actually raided, we did kill it. It was hard. There were some growing pains with the new tank. My initial idea was, I said, hey, let's just buy a tank. We don't have that much guild gold. We only have like 1 million guild gold because we haven't really sold. We're kind of a new, when when we reformed, we lost all the 17 million gold. We lost it all to a guy named Cobains, who was the guild master. And my GM was like, everyone just put in tickets. We'll get that guild gold. He stole it from us, basically. Nope. He didn't. It's his guild because he's the GM. So that we only had 1 million in funds. We could have easily, if we had 17 mil, we could have paid for. I found a tank that was willing to do it for 1 million gold. Was willing to tank for us for a week for 1 mil. And, this was a guy with a lot of cutting-edge experience that had done a lot of help and carries like this before. Well, it's not quite a carry. One guy can't carry a 20-man raid team, but he said he offers weak auras, advice, log review, telling people what to do, calling stuff on Discord, whatever needs to happen, helping managing cooldowns, stuff like that. And I actually managed to price him down. I said, can you do a single night 400k? And I figured, I told my guild leader, I said, I will buy a token. I can't afford to buy 2 tokens. I'm not, Mr. Moneybags over here. But I would buy a token just to make sure that we hire this guy, and you only have to pay half out of the guild bank. I will pay the other half. And it came down. It was like Sunday. Raid was in 2 days, and I said, I'm getting messages from this guy. He wants me to confirm or deny. He wants me to give him an answer soon because he's coming up with plans and schemes. He needs to know, is our raid going to be on his to-do list? And my GM said, no. He said, thank you for putting in the effort to find this guy, but we're going to do it as a guild. We're going to get we have people on the bench. We're going to get them off the bench. We're going to get them good enough. They're going to be good enough. They're going to play fucking good, and we're going to kill this goddamn boss. I'm going to tell them to play good. And that's what we did. We had Anax come off the bench and come into a tanking role. I know I think he's usually a DPS player, but he said, you know what, I'm going to tank this goddamn boss. And there were growing pains. He'd pull Psychus around the wrong way. He wouldn't get aggro on the Psychrophages. But you know what? That's normal. It's normal to have growing pains like that, especially with a guy that only has 20 pulls on this boss in total. And I'm really happy with Anax and for Anax for being able to achieve this. Being able to come in to a full raid team that everyone already knows what's going on. We're here to do it, and he just has to catch up, and he did it. So we killed N'Zoth that week, and it was a big sense of relief. It was a big relief for us as a team. Everyone was sweaty. People were scared it wasn't going to happen. People thought the guild was going to implode any second. People told me, you're going to have to start applying. You're not going to get cutting edge. And I wanted it so bad. Now, it hasn't been completely smooth sailing. It's been mostly drama-free, but it hasn't been completely smooth sailing. We have had some trouble on re-clears. We've had weeks where we've killed N'Zoth every week, thankfully. But, we've had weeks, 6 weeks in of re-clearing, where we make it to the third raid night. We're a guild that is supposed to be killing this within 2 hours, because we have the skip. We're supposed to go Wrathion, 1 shot. Carapace, 1 shot. N'Zoth, maybe there's a fluke. We wipe. Bad beam. It happens. But 2 shot, we kill N'Zoth. That's how it's supposed to be. And we have had troubles where we've made it to the third raid night because people just aren't playing. People get disinterested, and they get uninvested because they're not getting anything. They have all the loot. They have the mount. Even though there's people in the team, like myself, who still don't have the mount. We're at pre-patch, alright, and I still don't have the goddamn mount. And we've killed this boss 8 times, alright, with the same raid team. Not changing things, really. A couple trials in. But, we still have 4 mounts to get. So, we're... Hopefully that's going to be water under the bridge here in a week or 2. Oh, man. That's a lot to talk about. But, that's my history of raiding in BFA. Mythic Plus, I'm not going to have much to say about. I'm not a huge Mythic Plus player. I think it's an amazing type of game mode. And I'm going to talk about it here in a second, but to wrap up Mythic raiding, I might mention when we get, it's going to have the amount of weeks to kill. Mine's going to be a really big number. I'll mention that when we get to that. But to wrap up Mythic raiding, I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm glad that we killed the boss, and it was a struggle. It was stressful, and it was an amazing story. So, raid progress. Here it is. 2 raid. We killed Uldir on the 2nd week. 7 days. All right. We didn't kill it on the first week. We didn't get AOTC on the first week, which I thought was a horrific sign. I went in and I one-shot this boss. All these Eternal Palace kills are me trying to farm this stupid fucking Ajara trinket. I wanted to get a Titan Forged one with a socket. I never did. I killed this thing. 37 heroic bosses. Obviously not all those are Ajara kills. most of them aren't Ashara kills. I can look at my actual count on my thing. I think it's like 10 or something. Never got a socket, never got Titan Forge. I went in. Oh, why is it so weird on my resolution? I went in. We one-shot it. Obviously, Vox Nihil is a good guild. They're not going to wipe on norm, or they're not going to fail to kill normal on first reset in their ult run. 19 raid resets, 125 days. This is because it's counting my time spent with my first friends guild, my second friends guild. You know, Gorillas, the guild that I was in that actually got it. I think our raid resets ended up being like. Nazoth was like, I said 5, but I think it might have been 6 now that I think about it. I don't think we killed it that first week with ANX. I can't quite remember. So let's just say 6. And this is counting from the first time I killed a boss. So basically, there was some downtime, right? This wasn't Gorilla's statistics. This was my statistics of spending with other raid, whatever. Well, I spent a long time on this patch in terms of like real life time. I was there before the corruption vendor. I was hyped for the corruption vendor. I've seen, I don't know how many corruption vendor rotations that I was hyped for, you know. When the corruption vendor came out, the very first corruption on it was Haste 3. This was the BIS corruption for Destruction Warlock. And I farmed 25,000 echoes of Nyalotha from 0 on the very first reset. That was in 3.5 days. I had a part-time job that I worked. I had 3 raid nights, and I still just pugged arena, 3v3 arena, all day, all night. I got 6 hours of sleep a night. And if I wasn't sleeping, if I wasn't working, I was grinding arena for those 3 days. And I had 300 arenas played, added onto my statistics. Of losing, mostly. Because I always played triple DPS. Mythic Plus, I'm not a huge Mythic Plus guy. This season 4 was amazing. I never played Reaping. I heard it was amazing, but I never played it. Beguiling was lame. Apparently, I did 8 beguiling runs. I don't even remember that. They were in the 2 to 9 bracket, so I never even saw the this stupid mechanic. Kahoonies. This mechanic was funny, but also not fun to play. I have 152 runs. I've run 3. This isn't that many days of Mythic Plus, but I had season 4. I had fun, and I'm glad I got to experience it genuinely. Destro, obviously, Blood DK, tanking. This was at the beginning of expansion, and I literally don't even remember these happening. So this was like a fever dream or something. Don't worry about those. Ugh. So weird. Your Mythic Plus account scores. 764 didn't play the game. Didn't play the game. Didn't play the game. Giga didn't play the game. Actually played the game. I'm not a Mythic Plus pusher. I never have been. I never will be. I think it's amazing content that a lot of people get. I'm glad that they get to enjoy. But for me, I do my 15s, and that's what I like. I like to get gear. And if I'm not getting gear, what am I doing? You know, my most active weeks were Tyrannical, Bolstering, Explosive, Woken. I ran 17 of keys and times 64% of them. Tyrannical, get rid of this. I hate Tyrannical. Why did I run 17 Tyrannical keys in a single week? Your most run dungeons. Apparently Workshop, well duh. Workshop. I don't even know how I failed 3. I got in time 90% of these, so I failed 3 of them, maybe 2 of them. I don't even know how you fail Workshop, but I managed to at some point. But I love Workshop. It's my favorite dungeon ever. You just kill, go forward. Especially, I didn't do it in Beguiling. So, if you did it back then, I'm sorry. That's all I have to say. I'm sorry. But that shit was awesome in Season 4. Ataldazar. I don't like Ataldazar. I hate Ataldazar. Fuck this thing. I only time half these keys. Fuck Ataldazar. I'm going to bed. Motherlode. I actually do like Motherlode. King's Rest. I don't even know why I'm looking at these. Basically, this is the important info. I got a key within 25 seconds, and my fastest key was only a +2. Even though I've done +3, I think I did a +3 this expansion. I pretty much had to have at some point. God, this was Mechagon. This is a tough key to +3, I guess. My buds, my friend, his alt, my other friend, someone I play arena with, and my partner on his warrior. Wait, this only has Season 4, right? Partner. I don't know who that is. These are just random people I did one key with. So I'm not a repeat gamer, as you can tell. Tim. This guy's in Vox Nihil. I don't know if he's still in Vox Nihil, but I still have him added. I love Tim. He was funny as hell. Elvir, this guy has had high aspirations and went on to go do great things in raiding scene, I guess. But his two friends, Don and Large Tusmont, these two guys are twin brothers that live together, and they sound exactly alike. They're funny as hell. I love playing with these two guys. I think this guy was a Fox Nihil guy as well. But man, I do miss these times sometimes, playing with these goofballs. Playing with my Mythic Plus buds and just goofing around, dude. That was my BFA review. Really, all of it was very front-loaded, as you can tell, because fuck Mythic Plus. No, Mythic Plus is cool. But obviously, for me, it's more about the rating. It's more about getting BIS. It's not about pushing this number. And I had a ton of fun. I had a ton of stress. It was all worth it. And I hope to have a bright future in the Shadowlands. Thanks for watching.